Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So then again, to start the meditation with some minutes of breathing, and then the second part of the meditation on subject of generosity. Last Thursday, I wasn't here, but I just looking at the transcript, Saul Geshe was talking, amongst other things he was talking about was on the subject of generosity. So I thought to make the subject of the main body of the meditation on that subject of generosity and how it is that the different factors that we should consider in order to make our act of generosity most beneficial. So then just to start, to create the most conducive conditions for meditation on that subject of generosity, by focusing for some minutes on the breath, to settle the mind and to focus the mind, to bring oneself into the present moment. So then just to sit comfortably, and if you already have a method for focusing the mind, then to employ that method. Otherwise, can use the method of observing sensation of the air as it passes in through the nostrils and passes back out, and trying as best as possible to keep the awareness on the sensation of the air as it comes in and out, while at the same time being alert to the various distractions that arise. And no matter how many times you have to bring the mind back, to discover that the mind's distracted, then to bring it back with that alertness, but also at the same time understanding there is a tendency of the mind that we have, most of us have at least, for it to become distracted. And so with a level of kindness and understanding, to bring the mind back to the breath. So then just to continue like this for first part of the meditation session. So if your mind has already wandered away, just to bring it back again. So then now with the main body of the meditation on subject of generosity, and last Thursday, Geshe talked a little bit on subject of generosity and various factors that are involved in performing the act of generosity skillfully. And as it said, defined, just the most simple definition of generosity is the wish to give. So firstly, in the act of generosity, there needs to be a recipient of our act of generosity. Another being. So then, really, in bringing skill to that, to being aware when we're performing the act of generosity, generating an awareness of who that other being is it appropriate to give this object to this other person? Best thing is to be aware of that. Is it really going to be of help or assistance to that other person? So it requires a degree of discernment. And Geshe-la mentioned it, one of the forms of generosity, of course, is the generosity giving Dharma. So he mentioned that particularly. And he actually said there, talking about it in terms of someone who is requesting to receive the Dharma. So we may not necessarily be a Dharma teacher as such, but still, if we've integrated the Dharma into our heart to some degree, and we know how it works, and in our everyday life we meet with people, then it may very well be most appropriate for us to perform this act of generosity giving Dharma. So it may not necessarily be the case, really, that someone asks us formally, but rather, hopefully through the Dharma anyway, we become sensitive, more sensitive to where other beings are at. And using that sensitivity to determine whether it is wise or not, skillful or not, to give Dharma advice. And so this has resonated down through the centuries. The important characteristic of Buddhism is that when the Buddha became enlightened, he didn't teach for 7 weeks. He didn't teach until he was requested to teach. And so the message is passed on down to us now. So of course, if we're formally going to teach, then it's said that a request should come to give the Dharma. However, in our everyday life, perhaps, if we've integrated the Dharma into our lives and we respect other beings and respect where they're at and sense where they're at, then it may be wise to impart something of the Dharma to others. So this characteristic in giving is to start to see if this is taking place. What we're cultivating in that attitude is a respect for the other person. Important we have respect for others. And also humility from our side. So the Dharma, the Dharma that we learn, or the information we learn, doesn't become the source for developing more pride. And even when a situation arises for us that seems to be appropriate to impart the Dharma, and that person may be in need, we don't know who that person may be. They may be a Bodhisattva. And if not a Bodhisattva, still this person, they may be in need of the Dharma, but they are far more advanced than us on the spiritual path. So you have to look at Geshe Sotram in terms of how he teaches. There's no sense of puffed upness, pride existing. There's a sense of humility and a sense of respect for those who he teaches, for us. But also as well from our side, if a situation arises where we are performing the act of generosity of giving Dharma, or a similitude to that, we could say, it also needs to be done, best to be done with the sense that what we're imparting is something which has worked for us, which is within our experience that it works. So you know it is the truth. Doesn't matter what anyone else says. You know it's the truth. You don't need to convince anyone else. And you impart it with faith. Faith that this really works. Then also in this act of generosity, we need to be aware of our motivation and to try to make it as pure as possible, the motivation. A motivation which is free of being contaminated by the worldly dharmas, of craving after some kind of form of praise, being praised for our knowledge, for our skill in being able to give advice, that we're not doing it for the sake of hearing those sweet words. Because otherwise, if it's an important part, if we yearn for praise, it may be the case that that's what we study. We study out of a need to be praised by others. So our study becomes corrupted. And then our act of generosity becomes corrupted. And then also it needs to be free from motivation of reputation, gaining good reputation on the basis of whatever Dharma knowledge we have. And also we can apply this anyway, in any case, to the act of generosity of other things as well, giving material things, giving love, giving protection. That these acts of generosity are not corrupted by the worldly dharmas. Then also needs to be free of that worldly dharma of power. Sometimes people give with a sense of having power over others, others being indebted to them, owing them a favor. And then also act of generosity not conditioned by motivation of material gain. Teaching in order for gaining wealth or material, something like that. And that also applies to giving, even say, material things, giving material things in order to get something back in return. Inappropriate motivation. So really, when we're looking at this as becoming a Buddhist practitioner, and trying to develop a similitude to the perfection of generosity, we really need to become an inner being, a being who's really looking into their mind, becoming aware of what the motivation is. It really gives the opportunity, the exercise of generosity, to sense how it is with our mind. What is the motivation for doing this? Because you can start to see just how deceptive our mind can be. And really, in terms of this, if we're becoming an inner being anyway, we sense how this first of the six perfections, generosity, becomes a foundation for all the others sequentially to develop, to be generosity first. How, very much in dependence upon this, our life is going to flourish in the future. our fulfillment, our meaning, our happiness is dependent upon us cultivating generosity. And so from that point of view, other beings are extremely kind, even if they don't intend to be, because they give us the opportunity to engage in the action of generosity. We need a recipient in order to perform the act of generosity. So the other person we're indebted to because they allow us to develop our mind through developing generosity. So there's a further sense of developing respect for the person who allows us to perform the act of generosity. And no basis for developing a puffed up sense of self-importance. Then also in terms of this act of generosity, important to dedicate well. Having performed the act skillfully, well motivated, like this sense of appreciation for others who allowed us to perform the act of generosity, then we dedicate it towards attainment, full enlightenment, on the basis of cultivating this act of cultivating the merit. So that the positive results manifest so that we can attain that state of enlightenment. And having attained that state of enlightenment, based on this act, being able to use our life to what we're here for, and that is to accomplish the benefit of all beings. So the act of generosity becomes a cause for us to fulfill our potential to benefit others. And so then with this as well, to act of generosity and dedicating to really rejoice in having done it, and where other beings are able to do it, maybe if we have difficulty being generous, then we can rejoice where others are able to do this, are developing this quality of generosity. We rejoice in their acts of generosity. And also wish that they attain the state of enlightenment in order to accomplish the benefit of others. So then just to conclude meditation, then from whatever result comes, or whatever positive result there is of reflecting in this way, may it be the case that we really can become more generous, and so thereby accomplish the benefit of as many beings as possible. So thank you.